G'day and welcome to the Product Makers Lab, the show where we dive into the real world stories of product innovation with makers. And today I'm talking with someone who truly embodies values-led business, Phoebe Preuss, founder of Living Koko. Living Koko is more than just a chocolate company, it's a zero-waste cacao business with deep roots in indigenous farming, community development and ethical sourcing. In this episode, Phoebe shares her journey from learning chocolate making on YouTube to building a brand that stays true to its values while navigating product development, retailer expectations, and collaboration opportunities. If you've ever struggled with balancing business growth and staying authentic to your mission, this conversation is for you. Let's dive in. Phoebe.
Hi. So lovely to be here. Thanks for the invitation. And I'd love to start with a little bit of a background, or perhaps you can let us know about your business, Living Koko, what products you make, how long you've been in business, and how you got started.
Living Koko is a cacao manufacturing space that is based in the western suburbs of Melbourne. We import beans from the Pacific Islands, predominantly Samoa, or Samoa, as everyone calls it here, and we make a range of products of drinking cacao, so ceremonial grade drinking cacao, bean to bar chocolates. We're a zero waste manufacturing space, so we also use the skin of the cacao bean for a range of cow husk tea, and then we grind it down and we also create a skincare range, so a body scrub and things like that. Being zero waste and using byproducts and all components of the beans has allowed us to get into different industries and different spaces in retail. Living Koko started probably about 7-8 years ago, but I feel like I've been saying that for 7-8 years, so it's probably a bit longer, probably about maybe 9 or 10 at least, maybe. But my family have been in cacao for many, many years, nearly 200 years, growing cacao back in Samoa and exporting. So exporting for actually about like 180 years, but growing using indigenous cultivation for probably hundreds more before that. So cacao is definitely in my blood, and the indigenous cultivation of cacao is just general conversation around the dinner table at times when I'm back home on the island.
I bet. Oh, I'm sure lots of family businesses around could relate, but what a legacy. I mean, I come from family business and I speak to a lot of people in family business, but I don't think they can speak to the legacy that lives behind your business. It's a fantastic story. Yeah.
Oh, huge. Yeah, it's a long story and it feels like a lot of responsibility too, but it's definitely a journey that I'm enjoying.
So tell me, what really prompted you to start with the products and the factory, producing? I'm not sure which product you started with. Was it the cacao or the drink or the bars?
The first bar was a 70% dark chocolate. So we only make dark, allergy-safe, vegan chocolate and products. Myself and my husband founded Living Koko, and we both came to it from very different reasons and experiences. For myself, it was about, I come from a community development background. Like I studied community and cultural development. And so for me, this was, I guess, like another string in the bow of how could I create a business that also supported community, supported village economies, and ensured that from the grower to the person eating the chocolate or eating the cacao, drinking the cacao, that everyone along the value chain felt honored and respected and supported. So that was, I guess, my journey through it and how my lens, where my husband came from it with, he had been trekking in, I don't know if you've seen his story, but he was trekking in Papua New Guinea and the group of trekkers were attacked. A couple of them, actually, some of the porters were killed in the attack, and it was horrific. And trying to create something that could support some of the porters that were growing cacao but could no longer walk long distances. And so again, supporting village economies, but for different reasons.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
wonderful story. I mean, also it's got some pain in there, but I think, what a great thing that you and your husband are doing. Tell me, what does your product development process look like today?
So at the moment we're actually trying to decrease the amount of products that we have. I think like many businesses, you expand your product range and then you realize, then I realized like, I got addicted to the expansion and my bank account couldn't keep up. And you realize there's, way too many products to be manufacturing, to be holding packaging for, to be marketing. So at the moment we're in a downsizing space of what actually works, what's selling the best, which is interesting because I remember coming from a community development mentality and background, I had no idea about product development. Or I learned how to make chocolate from YouTube, which a lot of people I've met along the way that have studied, chocolate making and gone to big institutions for it. Yeah, they think that's an interesting way of getting to the space.
Sure.
I feel sometimes my roles in the space. That's okay. Everyone's on their own journey. And I remember walking into my very first store trying to sell my product, and I had like this one small 38-gram bar that I was like, I made this and I want to sell it. And they were like, that's going to get lost. What your one chocolate amongst like one brand's 5 chocolate or another brand's 10 different flavors, no one's going to see that. So it made me realize that I needed to go away and create a few more different kinds of products. And now we're at a space where, we're downsizing. But our product development we're always thinking about what is the most inclusive product we can make. We want products that you can pick up and take anywhere and not be concerned that someone is going to create an allergic reaction, that it's enjoyable, that the ingredients, we know exactly where the ingredients come from, the origins of it, and that it's going to actually support people's systems or people's bodies instead of creating harm. So, those are the things that we value and that we take into consideration with each product that we come across. And then we're also wondering about packaging. So, how do we make sure that our packaging is, like the majority of our packaging is either home compostable, it can be recycled. So even like the foil that we use to ensure that it isn't paper backed. And so the foil can go straight into the recycling. What's the easiest way to manage the waste? And then also, if we're creating a product, what kind of byproducts are coming out of it? So like with the chocolate and the drinking cacao, it's the skin, the husk is the byproduct. And so what ways can we use this byproduct either within our own business, or how can we use it to collaborate with other businesses? So, every 6 months or so, I do a blanket reach out to breweries, beer makers, whiskey makers, people that would possibly like to infuse the cacao husk tea into their products, people that create chai and may want to do a choc chai. And it's a great way. Like we have a byproduct. It's cacao husk tea isn't probably the most popular thing in the market in Australia. It's amazing in Japan, which is where we export to, but doesn't have a huge market here. So how can we collaborate with other product makers to grow both of our brands and to connect to both of our audiences?
Yes. Oh, I love that. And I can really see how being values led and having these parameters really supports that development process, because you've got the guidelines that are important to you that really help shape the decision-making process. And, I really believe that it's making those decisions that can be the difficult piece. And having some really strict values-led guidelines creates that creative tension, because you're bordering yourself with these parameters, but it ultimately leads to being more creative because you've got those barriers in place.
Yeah, I agree. It definitely makes us more creative. Definitely weans out the people or the groups that probably aren't for us. And at first, it brings up a lot of shadows within me of, maybe we're never going to meet that niche market that has the same values as us. But the more we stay true to what we believe in, the more we promote and talk about it and embody it and can continue to promote it, as much as sometimes I get sick of saying it, you find that the people that are going along that journey end up finding you and wanting to be part of it. So
yeah. Oh, that's a great segue into how you really do solve that marketing piece and find your audience. Because obviously you've got this real focus on various stakeholders in the process. And I do wonder, how much time or energy do you spend really talking to the end consumer? Or are they naturally found through creating this product that also meets all these other parameters?
Yeah, I think it's a mix of it all, we're really consistent in our social media and EDMs and things like that. It took me a little while to, put my own face to the brand. It took me probably a couple of years to really jump into it and own it and realize that I am also my target audience and the things that I value and love, the more I put out there, the more I'm attracting like-minded people through our socials and missions. And then also we do a lot of face-to-face and community events, which through my community development practitioner hat, that's my jam. I love it. I was a Polynesian dance teacher for many years and still dance now. I still one-off workshops every month, which brings community together. We dance and then we drink cacao on the beach, and it's an event that people go away and they continue to talk about, and then they look forward to. And now, these events have really started to grow and sell out, and people are getting really excited about it. So that also just becomes, I guess, part of our marketing strategy, and at the same time, part of my self-care, ensuring that I'm still doing stuff that I just love, that is hugely a part of me, that I can't run my dance school anymore because, I'm a business owner. I don't have time to do a whole other dance school, 6 classes a week. But I remember saying the other day, I was like, I just want to go dance on the beach, and I wonder if anyone wants to dance with me. and then that's over a year grown to these 1-month events. So besides social media, talking directly to our community, and I do in-store tastings as well. I really promote our in-store tastings because I want people to come and ask me all the questions that they have about our products or about Samoa or about going on holiday on Samoa. I've planned, I've literally said itinerary for people. You need to do this, this, and this. There's lots of different ways that, we're marketing, and not just our products, but also tourism destination and our whole culture and a way of being, an indigenous perspective on life, an indigenous perspective on foods and food sovereignty and things like that. So there's so many different complex layers to our marketing strategy that I'm sure if someone, saw it, they'll just be like, huh? And then on top of all of that, there's the communication that I have with our stakeholders who are our elders back home in the Pacific, our farmers, the elders of my family that I literally seek guidance from for a lot of the products that we do, or I just keep them informed about what we're doing, so we all feel like we're part of this journey together. Our farmers we visit 2 to 3 times a year. We drink cacao, we hang out, we spend hours together drinking cacao and walking plantations. And then I also I take a tour of people back to Samoa once a year for 6 days and 5 nights. They get to connect with plantations, connect to the land, connect to country. So yeah, there's lots of different aspects to our business and layers of it, especially when your product is connected to your family history and then your culture. And then so everyone has almost like a stake in it, or an opinion, or a blessing for it. I need to manage a lot of different spaces and show up in spaces in a respectful way. For example, when I put out a post about Samoa or about culture, I'll write the post, I'll send it to my mother, I'll send it to one of my aunties to fact check it all. If I'm talking about the history of a different village that isn't my village, I'll make sure I get the permission from the elders of that village that I can post this. You know, it's not just pulling things out of someone's history book and putting it out there. There's definitely layers of approval that I go through to make sure that everything is done in a respectful way. Because I know that if there is a disruption in the relational space in one of those layers, it can filter into the whole business. Mm. So if I disrespectfully put out a story that isn't my story to tell without the right permissions to tell this story, then the consequence or the communication that could come back could really tarnish my brand. And so I make sure that I go through all the correct approvals with the traditional owners of these spaces to ensure that I can share this knowledge.
I completely understand why it took you a little while to take that leap and really make you and your profile a part of the brand. And I resonate with this one because of the complexities you've just explained, but also I know in my own family business, it's been a question, is that a road we should go down? And there hasn't been necessarily the natural appetite to become strong spokespeople for, you know, a brand of products. And on the flip side, you see it done so successfully, like a lot of brands that grow quickly will have that key personality behind them who's willing to get out there and if you can really demonstrate that authenticity and that story, you can really start to enroll people into your brand and that, you know, they know, like, and trust you and they want to buy from you. But I think you've demonstrated a great insight and articulated your process for how can you do that and protect the brand and protect all the stakeholders. And other businesses could be fearful of going down this road of putting themselves out there in the public eye and also having that alignment on what's being said. Yeah, because when it's not just you, if it is your family, and a lot of family businesses have that. If you're a founder and you're on your own, it's one thing, but when you're already a couple of generations down the road, so I loved that share. Thank you. Do you find that you have, actually, before I ask you that, I'd like to know, are you in many retailers? You talked about having a store of your own. Is that just an online store or do you have a bricks and mortar store?
Yep, it's just an online store. We're in about 50 to 60 retailers across Australia. And then we also export to New Zealand and Japan.
Yeah, fantastic. And do you find that you're under pressure with your retailers to make new products?
Around Christmas, I am. Easter, and it's not necessarily them. They're just asking the question. It's the pressure we obviously put on ourselves
like
for the question.
Perceived opportunity.
Right. Do you happen to have any Christmas things? And you're like, let me get a sticker and put it on something. But we change up a few things over Christmas. We did a few things over Easter over the last couple of years. For better or worse, I'm not sure, but I refuse to do Easter eggs. And for someone who makes chocolate, it seems really strange. But it's just a whole nother thing to go down that I don't have the headspace all the time to explore. And I'm also someone who, like, I really like exploring where these traditions come from first before just putting out something to buy, like for consumers to buy, because then it feels like it's consuming, right? It feels like just consumerism. We did the Pascal moon chocolate, which was based around the Pascal moon, which is the full moon, which indicates that Easter or the Passover is coming, that Easter is coming, and it's how Easter is actually connected to the goddess of new life, blossomings, and the rabbit and the egg were her symbols. But not really anything to do with the death of Christ, which when you're buying things like that, like the Easter eggs and the rabbit, you're like, what has this got to do with Easter? When did the egg resurrect? Not sure. Yeah, I just find a lot of these big moments of consumerism have lost a lot of their traditions of it, and being a brand that is so connected to our history, our culture, the traditional ways of being. I have this huge resistance to, let's just make eggs. Yeah. So, and lots of people keep saying it's not a good thing.
I can really see how connected you are to your purpose. So you've told us that you're looking really to rationalize your product suite now, which I completely understand, makes perfect sense. And often in a business cycle, you really need to go through those phases because you need to create the efficiencies. You get into a market and you attract in your audience, and then you really need to start making those efficiencies so that you're not just creating a whole lot of waste and pain and hard work. But generally, in terms of creating new products in order to keep that interest at store level, I know the consumerism aspect of this isn't aligned with you, but I think you still want to be found. Is there a general cadence for product release, or is it really about when inspiration strikes?
Sometimes it's when inspiration strikes, but then the development process. So inspiration strikes, and then we're like, okay, that's actually really great. Let's launch this at a certain time. So it's work on it and make sure that we've got everything, all our ducks in place, all the packaging and stuff. But we're going to launch this for the Christmas market, or we're going to do this for Mother's Day or for one of the sales events. But for example, we have a non-alcoholic beer that's infused with cacao. Again, we connected with a local brewery, and made our own non-alcoholic beer using the cacao husk tea. That was all, as you could imagine, getting all the packaging, everything in place took many, many months, probably about 6 or 7 months on top of, what we're doing on a regular day-to-day basis, chipping away at that. And then we released it during summer. And we knew that when we release it during summer, and there would be several festivals that would be marketing this too and pushing our launches in these big public spaces. And then also combining it with not just the summer festivals of the outside festivals, but then we again took the cacao husk tea, had conversations with a fashion designer who was looking at doing a runway project that we ended up calling Living Koko, which was she dyed all her fabrics with our cacao husk tea and with chocolate that couldn't be consumed, chocolate that we used to clean out brand new machines that isn't up for consumption. We'd had that aside and dyed all these fabrics. So again, we also use that as a way to market our non-alcoholic beer. We had a cacao bar at the event, so then that tied in also with Melbourne Fashion Festival. All her wear sustainable clothing, slow fashion. So just again bringing in collaborations that align to the brand, but then having also a product that we're launching and bringing more attention to you through it.
Yeah, I can really see all the opportunities that you create within this community and collaborations and these opportunities to try new things, to have product launches, and I think ultimately reach your audience and get feedback. So you'd know quite quickly, I assume, what's working, what isn't working when you're handing out chocolate on the day at a festival, that sort of thing. Is that, do you find that you get the opportunity to get a lot of data from your customers in those spaces?
Yeah. And even though that probably takes the most energy, those kinds of events, it's a great way to grab collateral for social media, to show that you're outside with the public, but also to get the data.
And I imagine having that data can be quite powerful when having conversations with retailers. Is that right?
Yep, it is, especially when we've done festivals in their area or run events in their area. With a lot of our retailers, like I guess we took a similar approach to how we communicate and connect with our farmers. It was understanding that we're all working through this together, that just because the product's on their shelves, it's also our job to help get it off their shelves. And having it in their store is such a great opportunity for our community who buy directly off us on our website to grab something locally, to not have to pay for the shipping. Shipping's crazy.
Yeah.
Shipping is crazy and so hard to get right. It's constantly changing. So we do a lot to promote that our products are in their store. Like we put it on our social media, we celebrate when they're in there. We send it out to our community living in that area too, that we've got a new stockist. Anytime we do it, we offer 2 to 3 in-store tastings a year at least. And then if they have a space, like a space that we can do workshops or we can do a deeper dive into cacao, then promote that to their customers. We will posters up and we'll go in and do like a 45-minute like cacao indigenous cultivation conversation. So it really makes the brand attractive. In lots of different ways, that the community gets direct access to a farmer, essentially. Like my family are farmers. They can ask some of the questions that you don't necessarily get to ask when you just grab a product off the shelf. And there's things that we can tell them about, that we plant on a waxing moon, that we wait for a certain constellation to rise, because this constellation through biodynamics, which obviously we don't call biodynamics back home, but sends us messages on how we treat our natural resources. So, there's this conversation that it almost becomes like it's all the old ways that all of our ancestors had been doing cultivation, but bringing it to the now and reminding people that it's still happening and there's still a way to connect with it, that there are still people that are deep connected to nature, and we are so blessed that we get to have these products from those spaces.
Yeah, beautiful. I think this is my last question, but it might spur on some further ones. Do you have just, feeding back into the product process, because that's what I'm really passionate about understanding. Do you have a development kitchen and a mad scientist who's trying out new things in the background, or not?
Yeah, it's usually me and my husband when we have time, and it's usually at our house where we're just trying different things, like with the chocolate, or trying different ingredients. Or sometimes we're working with other friends that are, trained chocolatiers that are keen to come in and experiment with our beans. Yeah, so I love it when we have opportunities to work with chocolatiers. I'm a chocolate maker, I'm not a chocolatier. And so when other chocolatiers come in and they want their specific like couverture range of chocolate, we'll do the testing of, what roasting profile becomes their roasting profile, what flavors come through with that, what ingredients, and then we will make 35 kilos for them, which is theirs. We won't make that kind of tasting chocolate for anyone else but them.
Yeah.
And then they can take it away in their 5 kilo bags and do all the fancy chocolatier things. But I guess that's where we get to do the product development that isn't necessarily under our brand, but is something that we're doing in the background. And that's
I bet it is.
Yeah. It can take a lot of time, especially when they're overseas. And we're literally sending samples. What about this one? What about this?
Yeah.
But, it's...
I love that. Well, it sounds like you definitely have a lot of fun and keep yourself very busy. And I hope that this conversation for our listeners has sparked some ideas or, some inspiration to perhaps build their profile with their brand or find great collaborations. There's a lot in our conversation that I think is very inspirational. And we're recording now, it's mid-November. This probably won't go live until the new year. Is there anything that listeners should know? Have you got any events coming up later next year? or anything I can share? Or are you just going to be recovering from the Christmas rush?
Next year, there's going to be a lot more travel around Australia running our events and connecting with community. We run retreats and wellness spaces and things like that too. So I'm always looking for different ways to collaborate with other breathwork facilitators, yoga spaces, places that just, really put wellness and mental health first. So yeah, we're focusing on that a lot in the new year. So yeah, if there's anyone on here who would like to collaborate or connect and feel like our values are aligned, I would love them to reach out.
So how can they reach out to you?
Yeah, sure. Either send me a message on Instagram or my email is p.preuss@livingkoko.com. Or if you just go on our website, livingkoko.com, and our email, there's another email address there they can find us
wonderful. And I'll also be putting it in the show notes. Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Phoebe. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. And I know you've had a few little challenges in the factory today, which are, I'm sure, something that everyone can relate to who's in that manufacturing game. So I wish you the best for getting through that.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Hey there, it's Olivia Ratten here, the host of this podcast, The Product Makers Lab. I hope you got a lot out of today's episode. I thoroughly enjoyed interviewing Phoebe Preuss. I think she demonstrates first-class practice in running a product-based business. If you'd like to learn more about Phoebe, please check all the links in the show notes below. And if you want to hear more from me, please follow this podcast on whichever podcast platform you like to listen on, and reach out to me via my social links also in the show notes below.